I am going to turn over the controls over to John Vadney, who's on the phone with us today. And John is going to walk us through the new QFSM version 8.
Okie doke.
What we'll do is just give you a high-level overview so you can kind of get an idea of the new screen. You know, Roy, as you know, this is our new version. So we also are working on a new.
Nothing.
We're working on a new mobile deployment using an Android device that will be done in the next couple weeks, mid-August timeframe.
Okay. And then you go into the iOS after that?
Then after that, yeah.
Okay.
And with that, John, I'll turn it over to you. The floor is all yours.
Alrighty, thank you. Everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
And see the screen fine?
Yep.
Okay, there you go. Well, some of you I know are familiar with version 7, so I'll point out a few differences as I go along. But this is the difference. This is where you land when you log in. If you have admin authority, right? So I've logged in as admin, which means that that's the authority we have when we do all the setups, and you create all of the items that you end up eventually checking, taking your tasks while you're in the field or on the floor. So here you would see, and when you sign in here, you see everything that's going on in these 4 tables. So any approvals that are pending, and I'll point out where those are in the system, but there's 4 different events that are captured here. So you've got follow-ups, specific registration activities out there that some activity you can see here has been an inspection activity that required a follow-up, and if it hasn't been done, it's got the due date. If it hasn't been done, it's in red, and it's the same. It's carried out throughout all of them. So index of updates are those items that are updated in the system that are new that you haven't seen yet. Corrective actions are those items, deviations that go in that don't have corrective actions. So anyway, with that, we'll take you over to the menu on the side. First thing you point out here is that in the old system, you had 2 separate systems. It's now called Security Officer, used to be called Build, where all the setups are done. And what's now called QFSM Manager, it used to be called ACT, which is a separate application. They're all the same application now with one login. We'll take you over to the new side. We'll work backwards here from data entry and right back to how things look when they're set up. But if you have a different view, what you have some specific questions, things you'd like to see, please interrupt me and I'll head over there. But here is where, if you don't have the handheld device or an alternative to using the mobile device, is this feature here, which where you can put in your registrations. Right, so here there's a few inspection type of checks.
So
select one.
John?
Yeah. So we could use a web-enabled device and do it off a web-enabled device?
Yes. This is actually I'm using an external address and just using Chrome. It'll support Safari, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox. Right now, most of the testing is done with Chrome, and we'll follow up with the others. But it'll support those four browsers.
Now, as you get into it, the only other question I want you to keep in mind, I don't want to bug you too much, but as you're going forward, I see where you could put in your measurements here using a web-enabled device. What can't you do with a web-enabled device that you can with a handheld or with your testing Android device? What benefit would they give you versus just having a web-enabled device?
You mean the handheld? Well, one of the handheld devices we're talking about is the tablet that Kathy mentioned, the Android device. So there, that connection would be a web-enabled connection.
But what I'm saying, John, what I'm saying is right now, if I had my
Roy?
iPad, yes.
I was going to say one difference is that the tablet will allow you to take registrations and then when you come into the office, you don't have to have a wireless connection. So then you could come into the office, and then it would, you can sync it up, and then upload the data to the application.
Okay. So it would allow for offline usage.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's the way I understand it.
Okay.
Okay, I thought you were asking the difference between the handhelds that you use in version 7 and the
Are the handhelds in version 7 able to be used with this currently?
Yes, they are, and they work the same way, as Kathy said. They work the same way. So you log in when you had a server connection, and then you take them away, and everything is done on the mobile device. You don't need a connection because you're not working on the server; you're working off the device.
Right.
And then when you want to send that information you've taken back up to the server, you'd again have to go to some place where you had a connection, and then you upload those registrations.
Right. What I was after, John, is I thought we use iPads currently and iPhones, and I was thinking we were going to have to wait until you had an iOS-enabled application. But all of our collection points currently are well covered with Wi-Fi, so they'd be constantly connected. So I don't see if I'd like to know if there's more fields available in the app, or some other thing other than it can do it offline. If the only difference is it can do it offline, that's not a stumbling block to me. I could see where we could use this with our iPads currently.
Yeah. And actually, if you wanted to hook up with the iPad and you can hook into this version here, where you would actually do your entries from the server side.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can certainly do that, and you can do that regardless of the operating system because you're actually running on the server.
Okay.
Now, Roy, I will say, it is, a different user experience. When John starts going through taking registrations, there's different tabs there where you can enter different pieces of information, and we're just designing the user experience, it's just a tad bit differently on the mobile device.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll take it through here. If you're familiar with the way the handheld looks, right?
Yes.
For the end user. Okay. So you get your task list. And this is essentially your task list. What's on here is under today. So it works a little differently in that you have to have taken at least one of these registrations once. And once you do that, thereafter the system figures out what appears on the today list. But it also has these other selections. These will pull out tasks by specific frequencies, so things that are done on a per day basis or per hour basis or continuously.
And these can be set up by individual, right?
Oh yeah. These can be set up to be run by it. But everything is geared towards what's called an employee type or an employee role. So think of it as manager, line tech, production tech, quality assurance, whatever you want to call it, because you get to define those roles as well. And then you specify which role does a specific task, and then you define it by department. So it's only the people in that department who have that role can do that task.
Okay.
So you can organize it in a way that allows you to have full control over who can do what.
Okay.
So here we'll just pick one that's what did I pick? I picked per hour. So I've got a thing. I'm gonna do some chlorine checks per hour, and it's telling me I've got a Minimax range of parts per million. So I'm going to add, put in a value. Now here this is some old stuff that's changing. So I can't show you the new because it isn't here yet, but it's in the very next piece of work that they're actually working on now, which will give you quite a bit more control over these. These are called additional information fields. And if you remember from the handheld, you had those as well. So you had these 3 fields of information. Well, you'll have more fields and you can put more information. You'll have more control over what you call them as well. But here you can put in the date and time of the observation. If you needed to, say you were putting it in after the fact, it'll give you the date and timestamp it, right? But if you had a need, say you had information collected and for whatever reason you wanted to go back in and put it in later, but reflect when it was actually done, you could come back in here and set the date and time. And then you put in the amount, and reason you put in a number that's outside the range, it's going to come back and tell you it's outside the range. Do you want to continue? If you say yes, you get a deviation report. It's a fill in. So it'll say cause of deviation. Well, here I put in 500 parts per million. You can describe it, specify what the corrective action was, how the product was handled, a place to put in comments. Okay, and I'm just going to cancel that.
Now they're going back.
Well, it's good. I can show you what happens when you cancel it. So anyway, this is how you enter a registration from the server side.
Okay. The question I have too there is, you know,
I mean, just cancel it. I want the follow-up later on in the day. You see this one here.
John, this is Stan, the new kid on the block. When you say registration, what does that term reflect? What does that mean?
reading. You're taking a reading.
That's all it is.
John.
So on follow-up, if you've got things in follow-up,
Is he hearing you?
you're going to have this little red flashing sign that just
John.
draws your attention to the fact that you've got some work to do.
Hey, him,
The
Kathy.
follow-ups come in two flavors here. This is
John?
follow-up is actually done from
Wow.
from this table,
This is not
and
big.
it's somebody coming in.
What if he's on mute?
I kind of wonder.
Things that were done.
Hold on a second. Let me try to ping him on.
Deviation,
All right.
but they can't look at a deviation.
He's going home,
In some cases, it's sorry, I canceled the full deviation. And it's captured.
He's in the zone. Don't bother me.
The deviation report can be filled out so that then somebody can open it. So if I open up the deviation report, you can see that again, it's the same thing I just showed you before we filled out the registration. And you just,
The registration just means they're taking a reading.
information here.
Whatever the test may be. Could be chlorine, could be glass, could be whatever.
I hate that
They're-
term, though,
They're
registration.
optional.
Yeah, so what the hell is it?
Which ones,
Yeah.
Okay.
you would fill in.
Part of it is this language is from what Brian
Overseas?
does.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm talking away and I lost audio.
We're off mute.
I can hear you again, all right?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hello?
Yes, are you asking questions?
Yeah, we asked like
Yeah,
seven
they
of them. 7 or 8 of them.
I'm not surprised, and we recorded the fact that I ignored it too, didn't we?
Yeah, it was.
I'm sorry, I couldn't. I have a problem. I'll let you know now. I have a problem. I got a headset, and the little attachment there, the cable, sometimes has to be. I have to move it up and down to get the audio. I lose the audio. So.
Okay, we're going to take a registration on that. There's corrective action that will be due in the next 10 minutes.
Hey.
With that said, a question I do have is if I didn't want a user to be able to enter registrations after the fact. So what I'm saying is if I don't think my employee is doing their job because they're supposed to take a registration every hour, is there a way to make it so they can't put one in after the fact?
No, not right now.
Okay.
Right now, if it's due in an hour, if they don't take it, it's just going to show up. You'll see that it hasn't been taken, but the system doesn't
Doesn't
flag
stop them from putting it in later.
it, and it doesn't stop it from putting it in later.
Okay, so but there is a report that will tell me if I'm watching my manager screen or my screen, it'll pop up and say, hey, there was a reading due 10 minutes ago and they didn't take it.
You would need a report that would show you a missing registration report.
Okay,
And so you need the missing registration report.
okay, but there is a way to monitor that. Okay.
There is a way to do it. Well, certainly, the data, it's in the data.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, so after you fill out this report, so we put in whatever the corrective action is. Some action. And yep, sure did. And it's a required field. Well,
So even if I enter a registration, let's say it was due an hour ago, and I go, oh man, I forgot to do that, and I go do my registration now, can I timestamp in an hour ago? I saw where you were able to.
Yeah,
pick
you
it.
can.
I can. Okay.
yeah. So I was showing before. You can. Let me go back to that.
No, that's okay. I was just curious. I'm trying to figure out how I sneak past the system if I'm not doing my job and I want to go back and make it so no one knows.
Well, you can, but it actually the system captures two bits of data. So it'll capture the date that you put in for the registration, but it'll also capture the date and time it was actually made.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
So you'll be able to see that. You'll be able to see that hey, at 4 o'clock this guy took a registration that he put in as 3 o'clock.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. So anyway, this is what you do, and you fill out your corrective actions. You fill out your follow-up reports. Do the same. When you're done with them, you update them. They would come off the list. I don't want to change too much here. This is the demo data, but that would then fall off the list. When you handled everything on the list, that would stop leaking for you. The other thing while we're here, the other thing you can look at, I probably should hold on. When you actually there's nothing here to show you, so why don't I come back to that? I'll show you this here. Is your registrations tool. So from here you can take a look at all of the registrations, and this is regardless of whether they're deviations or not. But if you only wanted to look at deviations, you have a little radio button here, and you can just select those. And if you wanted to take one of those and look at its deviation report, you can bring that up as well. Scoots across here, you can see there are a number of bits of information with data filters that you could look in at. You just type in a value here, and it'll filter in on what you're looking for. There's some drop downs. In this case, status, first and last name. You can see who signed in, who actually made the registration. So you can, if you're looking for all the activity from a certain individual, you could track it that way as well. When you're done with it, anything that's displayed in the table. There's only 3 things in the table here. Of course, I hit it twice, so it works twice. It'll put it to an Excel file, and which is kind of handy if you want to do things with in Excel with it.
Now this is
so
the back end of this is really SQL though, correct?
Yeah, it's a DB2 database, SQL database.
DB2
So again, you can.
or Microsoft SQL.
Yeah, I think it's SQL.
Okay. That's okay.
If it's important to know the difference, I can check with the developers too.
Well, unless they change the back end on version 7 is Microsoft SQL.
I'm sorry?
The back end on version 7, the version we have, is Microsoft SQL. So unless they change that, then I'm sure it still is.
Okay.
Because I don't want to put it out to Excel. I'd rather run Cognos over the top or build some other reporting on it.
Right. You can do that. Okay, and without, unless you want to go through all these, I can just point out that you've got quite a few besides the filters, and each of these has sorts. You can see, I don't know if you can see on the screen.
Yeah.
It's just, these have these little up and down arrows, and so all the columns are sorted. Here you can select, different departments and different hazards, different particular procedures of the tasks. Those that are missing registrations or missing follow-ups, or rather missing corrective actions. And of course you can bracket it by date. So how do you build and pull all this together? Well, this is all done. Like 7, it's done off a flow chart. A little bit different here because the experience, if you're familiar with 7, is it's more full screen, so you can see all of the flow charts. So if I just pick the one that I've set up in here, so you wanted to run set up some crew checks, some hygiene or some inspections here. So you could add a new one. The easiest way, actually, well, we'll add one for you. So, since this is going to be an inspection, you're not really going to run a risk assessment on it. Oops, didn't like that. Let me show you the easy way to do it then. We just come in here and copy it. And we're just going to leave it as copy. So what that's done is just so you can see its copy, I left that in there. Again, if you're familiar with 7, you have these things called document templates. This one's called the standard template over here, and it'll specify which of these predefined tabs you're going to include on here. So if you really only wanted to use a purpose and a hazard, critical limit monitoring, and a corrective action, maybe that's all you wanted here. That's all you'd have to have, and you can define that on your own. So you can choose to you can modify what is displayed here. Having said that, you don't have to fill out all of these tabs either. You fill out the critical limits. If you're going to take an action, you want to know what the action is. So what's the range? So you know whether it's a deviation or not. So you've got a pass fail, or you've got a range like we saw earlier with the parts per million. Monitoring record is where you define who's responsible for making the change, how often you want it to, what the follow-up path is. And I'll talk about follow-up path a little bit more in a second. The corrective actions, and we'll skip over this. And this is maybe verification information. Who's going to check and make sure that all of these things were done correctly. Okay, so I can copy individual items. Once I've set one of these up, these types of checks are very similar. Right? They're basically a yes/no kind of an inspection. So once you set one up, it's just copy, rename it, copy, rename it, copy, rename it. You pretty quickly fill these out once you've got the money. If you had things from another step you wanted, you go to any flow chart, any particular area in the flow chart, and just pick one at random here. And, you can either copy everything from within that section, or you can copy an individual task. Just a good productivity function. Helps you really set things up quickly. Change logs throughout here. You have change logs that allow you to take a look at what's happened to that particular task, who's changed it, who made what change. You can actually see to the right what the change was. If you get into the
Where
habit
is this
of
interface?
putting these things together, you put something, you don't have to get too
Significantly
worried,
different than the last one.
but if you put something that'll draw your attention to where the change was made, or specifically was done, then you can, as you move through here, you can kind of zero in on what was changed, and that'll help you a lot. But this has multiple pages. It's got date ranges again for searching as this thing builds out, and you can put this to several different types of files if necessary. Okay. The other thing you can do, let's go back here. You see something called startup task, and if you edit this, right, you can if you designate this as startup task, what will happen is when you look at your startup tasks and your task list rather, the only task you'll see is your startup task. It forces you to do the startup task first, and then you can work on the other tasks. Common use for that is maybe calibration of equipment before you use it to, like a temperature probe in some applications, where they want to make sure that that's done before they start using the temperature probe to take all the temperatures in the course of the day.
I'm seeing pictures. Or a tab that says pictures.
Yeah. What pictures right now let you do, and again, part of the activity that's going on now is to give a little more function in terms of pictures. But right now, what you can do with pictures is it's similar to external documents. You can store a picture in here, and then you would have it as part of that check. And so when you display the check, you can see that picture. It doesn't actually display on the mobile device right now.
Okay. And you're not able to take a picture on a mobile device and attach it directly.
No, we do have requirements for that though. Some folks obviously would like to do that. In addition, they would like to be able to take, scan like a UPC or G10 label, and be able to pick up the numbers as well, as well as take pictures of something. So you do an inspection, The other use, of course, is to show people either what to look for, or this is what it should look like, or if it looks like this, call for help, those sort of things. So there are a number of things that are requirements that we're looking at incorporating, but right now it's sort of at a basic level.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't I just take you through setup? In the setting all these checks up, I mentioned the document template. Yeah, that's important. So we can take a look at the standard one. This is one that comes with the system. It's not editable, so it's all grayed out. But you can see these little check boxes are all checked, and so that's why all those tabs are there. But if you want to create one, we can just add one in here and decide that all we want is a purpose. And let's see if I can get away with just doing that. It's going to make me go put something else in. Okay. So if I put in purpose and they wanted to go use that. Show you what we do. Okay. So just to show you, it's just all I wanted was purpose, and that's all I have in this template. So you can decide what it is you build up on these checks from document template. Frequency is how often you perform a task, and you can be as continuously is things that don't really have a set time. So you can it's like something maybe start a shift or well, not start a shift, but start a production run or something like that. It's kind of nebulous. But if something's supposed to be done every hour, every day, every week, month, year, if you want to do something quarterly, you might say a year and give it 4 times. Approvals, I should go back. I'm sorry. Hope I'm not bouncing it around too much.
No.
Okay, so, jeez, darn it. Have to work a little harder at it. Okay, so when we're here, when we're in here, if I've made a change to this and I decide, say you come in here and you're either creating it brand new or you've made a change, and now you need to approve it because maybe you've got before something's done on a line, maybe you want the local supervisor that needs to know about it, maybe the production manager wants to know about it, maybe somebody from quality control, quality assurance wants to know about it. So you set up these approvals. So everyone that needs to have a say in it and see it and sign off on it is your approval path. You can have a separate approval path you can have as many as you want. So you wouldn't do it this way, but if you wanted a separate approval path for each and every check you put in here, you could do it that way if you wanted to. When you set it so I'll go back and show you what the approvals are set up. But when you start it, you would start your approval process. You start it here. You can also recall it. So you can for whatever reason some change you wanted to make, you want to stop it. Maybe it's gotten to you've got 3 levels of approval and it's gone through the first or second one. They found something they want changed, and so before it goes to the 3rd one, you just call it back, make the change, and start it all over again. If you've got something that's pretty basic, maybe you're sitting down with the person who has to approve it. Maybe you're the one who has to approve it. You don't put yourself through the approval process, so you can activate it, which fully approves it immediately. And you can pull it back that way and completely deactivate it. Once it's fully approved, it's in production. This is what people work on day to day. So as you're making changes, they can be working on things, and you can be making changes to the next iteration of it. They don't see that; they're not affected by it until it's fully approved, and you have full control over it when it goes into production. So those are approvals, and you can start these processes individually from each of these tasks, or you can go back to the flow chart, and if you had a lot of them to do, you could open them up and just and then you just select the ones that you wanted to fully approve. And again, you got the same set of buttons up at the top. So in the approval process, you define, as I said, who's that. In this case, you've got two approvers, and again, it's all done by employee type, not by name. So when you assign employee type to somebody, that's where you can associate the name with the role and the authority. But this is just done by type. So in this case, somebody's got it's done by a manager, and the first and second was employee. If they wanted to reverse that, you wouldn't have to recreate all that. You could just go into you could update the approval order and just change that around. It's just a matter of I won't save it. Somebody set this up, but that's what you do. I would save it. So you've got your approvals. You can optionally have emails sent out on approvals. You can set it up to send the emails after so many days. If somebody hasn't when they've logged in, they haven't actually done the approval, put a reminder. The follow-ups that we talked about earlier, the people who are doing those follow-ups, those same ideas to approvals. These are set up under these follow-up paths. This one's just against manager and quality manager, and it's the same as approval. You have a little different thing in approvers in follow-up, and that's that you don't have to require follow-ups on everything. You want follow-up on everything, or you might just say, look, I want to follow up on this if I've had a deviation, if this is the third deviation in the last 5 days, or maybe this is the third deviation out of the last 6 observations, and you can set that number to be whatever you want it to be. It'll always kick off a deviation report, but it won't require you to do a follow-up unless you meet that criteria. Let's take a look at binders. Table of content is where you organize things so that you can let's see about that one. That's reasonable. No. Okay, so this is how you can organize your data, and you can organize this in any way you like. So this is produce. This might be the packing house, and any number of bits underneath. It's easy to set up. You just insert a new section, and this is new. And then you can position it, up or down with these arrows. You can put it underneath something. Bring it back out. Delete it. Okay. And then as you're creating things, you'll be given an opportunity to assign what you've created to wherever in the table of contents you want it to be, so you can find it later. Defining binders. This is just a tool to help define who can see what in the table of contents. So if your binder is what you can see. So think of it as a 3-ring binder. If your 3-ring binder is got that task, that procedure in it, then you can see it. If it's not in your binder, well, it's not there to be seen. So you can control who sees what. Each task can have as many binders assigned to it as you want. So each person has one binder, but the task can have as many as you want. So that's how you control who can see it. Deviations or deviation reports. I'm sorry, deviation reports. These are deviation lists. So when you're taking a task, you've got a numeric range. It could be temperature, parts per million, whatever it is you want it to be. You define the thing and the range. But you might have a list of things. So, for example, if you're looking at an item, you might say, hey, if I spot any of these things, that's a deviation. And so when they come up with that monitoring check we saw, instead of a number you put in, you'd have one of those. You'd have those 3 items, however many you define. It could be 20, it could be 5, whatever you want to put in. And then they would go down the list and select the ones that matched, and that would be a deviation. If it's not a deviation, they select the first one. changes going on that will allow you to have more than one non-deviation response. So, for example, if you're going to go check something and the tool is down or offline, you'll be able to mark it as down or offline rather than saying, yeah, it was okay. Even if you put in a comment that said it was offline, you've got to allow for it to report somewhere because it's going to show up as being okay. It really was never taken, but you don't want it to be treated as a missing registration either. So having multiple non-deviation responses will help with that. Device allows you to keep track of some of your the tools and devices you use. So if you use temperature probes or handheld units, you can put them in here under vendor information. So there's quite a bit of information you can store, continuous, periodic maintenance. You can add the devices in, including serial number. It's just a handy place to keep that information. Action lists are, again, an improvement over version 7. These are the corrective actions. These are what appears on your mobile device. So your handheld today, if you took a registration on your handheld and it was a deviation, you'd get a list of actions you would take. You'd take one of those actions. But in version 7, you only had that one list. In version 8, you can have as many lists as you want. And each list can have any number of items under them. Some of which, do we have it in here? I have one in here. I should. Probably don't have it in here. But if let's see, recheck. I put a repeat action. If somebody came in, you would probably check, but I mean, if somebody came in and it was this would be the name of some item. Yeah. So if they took, did I lose you again?
No, we're here.
Are you still there? Did I lose you?
No, we're here.
We're here.
Okay. Okay. It popped up on my system here, so maybe remember to ask. At any rate, what will happen is if you hit repeat and you check the deviation, it will, and if you check that action item, it will cause that registration to be marked as repeat or redo. So you would continue to check. It would prompt you to continue to check that until it was cleared. So in this case, it might be a situation where you've got an adjustment that has to be made. So maybe the chlorine mix or something was just a little bit off, or whatever the measurement might be, and you would look at it, and maybe the action at that time would be make an adjustment and then take the reading again. And so when the reading is right, then you stop your process again. So this way you could have them do that, recheck it, and you can check later on how often did that happen. And, so each time that occurs, it's going to go in as a registration, but they're prompted to continue to do it until that condition occurs. Okay. One of the nice things about version 8 also is since these are all here, you can once you've got one, if you've got something close, you can copy. If you've got a copy capability, you can print these things. You can add, delete. You can work on them. I think it's much easier to work on in version 8 than it was in version 7. So we've got through setup. How are we doing time wise? We doing okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Okay.
And Roy, I have another call at 5:30, so I may just drop off, but I'll leave the go-to meeting running.
Okay.
And if you guys finish up by the time I get back, if you just, someone can end the meeting, it will be fine.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay. So I think they're in the process of cleaning up and redoing the data here, but what you should see, when it's just done right, is somebody put a logo in. You can optionally put logos in here, but you can define multiple organizations in version 8, whereas you could only do one essentially in version 7. So for example, you could put as many organizations as you want, and however you define, they don't have to be companies. They can be whatever entity you want to capture. so you put, it's easy to put the logo in. You just hit select, and you find something on your either disks that are attached to your machine, or things that are on your computer, or maybe you've got a memory stick somewhere, wherever and however you want to access the information from and pull it in. If you set this up as what's called a factory, this is what you then would assign your departments to with the department creation assignment. But anyway, this is organization setup. Employees. So essentially, you can make things unique, by organization as well. Here's where you define all the people in the system. And again, you could just copy if you've got something that's very, very similar. Otherwise, add, and you fill the information in. Even when you copy, it's going to still make it's going to blank out the names. It's going to be with your own names. These are the authorities you get when you sign up for admin, which is what I mentioned I had. So admin lets you see all of this. If you don't have admin, you're not going to see this. What you see when you come in is just QFSM manager, and there's two authorities for that. Here you get QFSM manager, which lets you see everything of the QFSM manager, and QFSM user lets you see everything except for tool, which right now has the registrations piece that we saw earlier. This thing called QFSM head manager. What that'll do is when we, if you remember when we first started, showed you the dashboard, and the dashboard has all of the activity going in for everybody, whatever's going on in the system. When you sign on to QFSM manager, your normal view is only those tasks that relate to your particular role. So you wouldn't be seeing everything. You would just be seeing relate to what you do. But if you had somebody who wanted to see all that, but you only wanted them to have access to QFSM manager, you would assign this as well. And then they would get to see all of the... So you might have somebody who's administering certain things or expediting things. Maybe follow up on people who aren't closing down on follow-ups or following up on them, that sort of thing. So, but you don't want to give them access to all the setup authorities. So you'd assign them that role. Okay, production. Let's skip that. Departments. In department, everything. Department is where you tie people, the actual names. So far, we've really been talking about roles, employee roles, titles, manager, employee. Was that a question? Or?
Well, we don't know who that is. Somebody in the background there.
Oh gosh, I actually heard something. Usually I don't hear anything, so when I heard that, I figured I was losing audio again. Okay, so this is where you tie people, the actual people, to these roles. And so you'd assign, you want to add somebody, you assign the role. Say QA technician, you assign the employee, and you'd assign that person. Take Natalie out because I'm updating somebody's demo data. You put in the description. When you're done, hit update, and that'll save your changes. And then what will happen is, let's go back to here. When you set up your tasks, the department that's associated with that task will tie that task to these people. Okay.
Is someone on the phone? We can hear discussions going on in the background. You might want to go on mute. Hello?
I think they hit the button. That's what they were saying. They're arguing about their computer, man. But that's okay.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
It's all good.
Okay, so product groups. Did you have a question on departments before I left that?
That's not us. Still them.
Okay. So product groups. Let's go to product groups. So product group. What you put in a product group is you can have as many as you want. But this is items that are treated, usually that have a common hazard or risk. So, so here, for example, we've got active produce, which has, and you can, there's quite a bit of information you can put in here above and beyond what used to be available, what's available in version 7. Information about consumer preparation, regulation, ingredients. And when you add these things in, you basically ask for a, what is the hazard itself? Maybe it's listeria, some sort of pathogen. What's the consequence of it happening? Well, if it happens, I mean, it may be a small consequence of happening. I mean, small likelihood, but the consequence of it happening. So maybe in the case of a pathogen, it's a pretty big deal, right? So, so there might be a large type of requirement. In that case, might be food safety, something like listeria, for example. And you put that in. And maybe if it's an inspection, you put something medium. That really depends on your own procedures. Product groups as you want. But you can only have one per flow chart. Okay, so when I come over here, come to this flow chart. Let me just tie a couple pieces together for you. So on this flow chart, I can bring up chart properties, and I would hit edit, and I would assign my product group that we just worked with. I would assign the department I want to work with. In this case, give them the same name, made it easier to figure out what I wanted. We'll find it. You can put additional items here as well, either checks or documents that you want to see. But you can only see them here. Or within from if it's a manager from the table of contents. Again, I just meant they won't show up. They're not on the handheld device. They have to come onto the server. We back up, finish our setup. So here, if you remember, each of these corresponds to one of those tabs you saw in the document templates that we looked at before. So you go right into one of these, and each of these is a purpose. And each of these, when you fill out those checks, is a drop down. So when you open up the drop down, you're going to get all of these. You pick the one you want. You define your own hazards. And each of the hazards, if you've got a number of these out here, and they're in production, they're being used, it's going to help you make sure that you don't change things, without going through whatever approval process you need to go through. So, because again, people are actually using some of these things. Some of these things you're working on may be new. Some of these are already out there. So in this case, this was telling me that I've got 15 documents which are not in development. And do I want to change it? I said yes. I haven't changed them yet. It won't actually change me until I hit update. But I could come in here and make whatever changes I want to make. Get all these drop downs. All of these can be set up and defined in the system. So all these categories, all these types are completely open to be defined by you. And you've got a number of additional information capability here. Categories you could store information, but these are completely optional, so it's up to you what you want to put in. And when you're done, you'd hit update. Now, if I hit update on this, he's going to come back and he's going to say, okay, remember I told you that you had 15 of these in production. Which one of these do you want to leave in production? Which one do you want to bring all back to go through the approval process? Well, since this is a demo, I'm going to set it back to production, just so I don't change that. But you could choose which one of these needed to go and each of these are the same. When you do critical limits, this is where you set up your ranges. But you have a choice, as I said. This could be a range or a list. So if it's a deviation list, it's going to ask you. It's going to ask you for the list. And again, it depends on the list you've chosen. So whatever list you've defined will display here. But if it's a range, you put in a min and a max value. You select the type of unit of measure. In this case, I want a temperature in Fahrenheit. And again, you define the unit of measure type. You define the unit of measure as well. Just cancel that. Monitoring record. And these are important because they define what it is that's being monitored. Who's doing the work? Who's doing it? How often do they do it? The frequency, and who's going to follow up on it? So here's an inspection. Change it just to show you what it looks like. So this information, if you're using the tablet or the handheld, and you put it in,
Or could the last interface be spit out in Spanish?
Display on the device. So
Or is that a function of the browser?
For example, to people.
I mean, I see some Dutch in there, like you were mentioning before,
A
but
couple of words on
I can't
how to
remember. I
conduct
think it could.
this
Matter of fact, I'm
particular
pretty sure.
inspection of this particular
Because that was
task.
one of the
In
things
case
I
like that. It's usually but here you this is where you assign who does the work. How often it's done. Who's following
What?
up on it.
I'm gonna eat.
you're gonna eat? Why don't you eat?
Corrective actions.
You're gonna eat.
In a similar
Is that what you said?
You didn't eat
I
your
thought I
burger?
saw you eat.
No, I was.
Take 3 bites and then say, "Oh, I'm good." Roy, I'm kind of quasi lost, to be honest with you. It's a lot of information. I don't know how much more you want to watch, listen through, walk through, whatever. What you do? Or?
I've got 4 questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll take you off mute.
So again, here you can define who's responsible, what the follow-up path is, what the particular action list is. If you recall, we looked at those lists where you would have a list of 1 or more items that the employee, whoever's doing the task, would choose. And there's also an option on that action list to if there's something on the list that doesn't apply. They have a condition that isn't thought of and wasn't on the list. They can type in other just to make sure you capture everything that was going on. Let's see. They're all very similar. They all have the same list of functions at the top. Same way of dealing with them, where you click on a name, the name has a little link on it. If it exists, you click on it and that can bring it up to edit mode. Click on anywhere else, you can click here too, but if you click on here, it's liable to go into edit mode, so you want to stay away from that if you're just looking to do things like delete, copy, so you need to highlight it first and then you can take action up here. Show details is nice because show details will tell you every word it's being used. So I've got this item called cleaning, it's not being used anywhere. That was useful. Let's find that it's being used. Come on, this has got to be used. Maybe we don't do that. This one's got to be. Okay. So that particular one is used in these procedures. Procedure names. Okay. So let's see. We went through all the pictures. This would be the same thing. This is how you get the pictures in the system. So let's see. Do I have a picture in here? Time to change the database. If I wanted to add a picture, I would just let's see. Cue up hardware. Come on. Okay. I'm just going to put here, why would you just put something to create there? Well, again, the reason I do that comes back to this change log. So I'm looking at this image, and I can say, oh yeah, that's where I created that one. So if I have, a page or two of changes, I can go back and see, that's what this was for. That's what was first created. So you don't have to get too wordy, but it just helps you know what you're looking at when you're viewing the change log. So when I put this in a document, where you saw it was picture, it would be in the drop down. I'd select it. It would appear when I wanted to take a look at that procedure. I'd be able to see the picture. But again, I can only see it from within the application on the server at the moment. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, miscellaneous gives you some control over some additional fields. If you need something that isn't one of these items, you can define your own. Essentially, you can define your own items, and you can give them in here. You can call them what you want to call them on the template. Because when you get to create it, you can put a name in and give it it'll you can decide to show it and decide what you want to call it. So you have some control. In addition to what the system provides, you can add in things that it's not there that you'd like to add. That's pretty much it. Oh, let me just show you master tables. I think at some future time, I've asked them to do this. They're going to move master tables up under security officer. It's part of build and it sort of belongs. And again, if you don't have the admin authority, you don't see this. All you see is QFSM managers. You don't see this or this. I mentioned earlier that you get types, and you can define all those categories. So this is where you define all that. So if you put in cities, state, counties, countries you deal with, so you got complete control of that. In any and all fields. So if you need something, you define it. If you don't need it, well, if it's not a required field, then you don't need to fill it out. And they're all the same. Very, very consistent. Similar type of tables, all the same kind of same approach. Click on a name to update. Click on the line, highlight it to copy. It's created. Okay. And this can expand or contract the whole list here. Okay, that's pretty much the high-level Cook's tour.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yep, I got a few of them.
Okay.
So first one, I remember in version 7, you could go in and define a registration, and if it was a critical point, and if it was off, it would email. I believe it was email. I can't remember if it's also text, but I remember it would email. Kind of set off the red bell alarm that there's some major problem going on, and notify a bunch of people. That's function still in here somewhere, correct?
Yes, it is. It's under the follow-up. So what would happen is, as you see in here for follow-up, when you define somebody for follow-up, you can also just say you want an email.
Okay.
So whenever a follow-up is required, so deviation has occurred. If you said always, then every time you had a deviation, anybody on that list who had this checked off would get an email.
Okay. So it could email 10 people that the chlorine level was too high in the water or whatever it was. Okay.
Yep. You could just define. You just put those 10 people in the list.
Okay.
And they would get that. Now, if you do that though, then each of them or somebody's going to have to go in there. They become a follow-up. What happens is who's ever in the list, when you do a follow-up, it goes down and progresses through the list. So if you've got 3 people in this list, when the first person looks at it and finishes it, they hit update. They've done their work, added their comments. It goes to the next person in the list.
Oh, okay.
And it'll go to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. So if you put 10 people on the list, somebody's going to have. They're not actually supposed to do that, but somebody's going to have to clear that every day.
In the version 7, you could print out the sheets that basically you could put in your HACCP log. I'm assuming this has the
Yes.
same capability.
Yes, you can do that. I can't show you that, unfortunately.
Right, I
because, again,
understand.
part of the setup they're doing here
Okay.
is, but normally what would happen is if you go to here, it was set up to do that. If you go to the table of contents, I don't know if I've got a, if I had a HACCP plan here, I could print that out.
Okay.
And that would show all my CCPs.
Okay.
Right. And this actually it exists somewhere actually where I put it was on the flowchart header. If you remember, when I showed you, you can also add things to the flowchart. So you could actually view it there as well if that was demonstratable right now.
Okay. Now, you said this is an external website, so if I wanted to demo this to Brian Thompson, if I got a hold of you, we could get to this directly and play with it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, actually, yeah.
And then, what about all of our version 7 setup that we've done? Is that transferable, or do we reset it all up in version 8?
It is. We can migrate it.
Okay.
There's some limitations on it. It's not, push a button and suddenly it's version 8. Unfortunately, I'd like that. You can, if you want to save the data, right? It'll move all the data over. It'll move a good deal of the setup, items on the left. It doesn't copy over the flowcharts.
Okay.
So the flowcharts have to be done again, and then they have to be attached to these items.
Okay.
I understand. I haven't done it myself, but I understand there's some tools to help with that. So maybe not as daunting as it sounds, but there are utilities to bring it over and do the migration, but there is some manual effort involved.
Okay.
Is my point.
All right. Is Ole still involved?
Yeah, he's involved. He's been focusing more and more on the Europe piece of this. In fact, we just did the migration. The first big migration we've done was with Danish Crown in Europe.
Okay.
They've got about 15 or 20 separate locations that all tie into a common database and use it. Something like several hundred flowcharts.
Okay.
So they're using version 8 over there?
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, I mean they may be doing it in a parallel mode. I don't have the up-to-date status on it, but I know that the migration of the existing version 7 is done. Not for that long ago, maybe a month ago or so.
Okay. Is there, I know obviously you are actively working on the Android version, which should be out here shortly. Are there iOS developers that have been looking at this, or how far out is the iOS version?
Well, I right now they're focusing on Android. I know that Angela wanted to do iOS as soon as the Android was done.
Okay.
Beyond that, I haven't heard what the plans are, but I know for a fact that she wants to support Android and iOS. But I think she just wanted to give them a chance to get one of them done first.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I could see where if you had a small Android device or something like that, or even an iOS device, if I wanted to, I'm not wanting all my inspectors to be carrying around an iPad mini. I want them to realize that they're going to, if I wanted to give them an iPod Touch or an iPhone to use instead, the interface would be nice to have something rather than the website. But, on an iPad, that looked pretty good, so I actually want to play with a little bit on an iPad and see what it's like. All right, and then according to what I read on our contract, we do have support for a 10-user of Food Safety Manager. Could you follow up with Kathy and see if we do have this under support and what it would take if we wanted to upgrade to this version?
Okay, sure. Absolutely, we'll do that.
Okay. And that is all I had. I guess there is one more. What are the hardware requirements, or what are the recommended requirements for this compared to what version 7 requires?
Well, since we've been running this on the servers in Longwood, I'm not saying they don't do it, but I mean, no, I don't think. I'm not sure if we have anybody. Kathy or Nazi probably would not. If you know Nazi, but Nazi would probably not.
Okay.
But right now, most people that are on this, everyone I know that's on it is running a SaaS model and running off a server and all. So basically, your hardware requirements are not a mill. It's just your own laptop or computer.
Right. Okay.
Or if you had a tablet, you wanted to access it through the server, but everything runs on the server model.
So, for us, I think, we like to have our stuff inside. So, I'd be curious if the version 7 server that we set up has enough. I assume it has enough horsepower to handle it, but I'd like to know. Recommended requirements.
I got more than 2 things I better write them down. So.
Okay.
And also,
Hardware requirements.
yeah.
For the server. Now I'm assuming that.
Do you know what you have for off the top of your head? What you have for 7 right now?
A Xenon 5430 or 5530.
It was pretty substantial. We bought a little more.
55. I'm
55.
sorry. What was the
Xenon, Xeon.
Xenon.
X.
It's XEO.
XEON.
Sorry. Xenon 5530. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Let me find out what they got. Check with the IT guy.
Is the app that's on the? We still have those Motorola handhelds that we had previously for the collection devices. Is there a different application that goes on there, or is it?
Yeah. Yeah. It has to talk to the version 8 database.
Okay.
And there are some differences in it. So there is an update to it.
Okay.
The coding and the work that they're putting in. So they will support the basics of what's on 7 for the handheld. All the enhancement activities, the additional fields I was talking about, the things that they really want to take advantage of, things like that the smartphones and the tablets offer.
Right.
So that's I think what they're gearing most of the development activity for.
Okay.
So if you're stuck with the handheld, and you can talk to Kathy about this, but I think if you're stuck with the handheld, it would support it, but I wouldn't look for a lot of
Enhancements to it.
changes or enhancements on that model, but that would certainly be available on the tablets.
Right. Okay. And then obviously you're doing a lot of this, John. Who else is the support mechanism end-to-end for this product?
Let's see. There's it's me. Have you met Harold? Harold Ewell?
I don't know that I have.
Harold is our food safety guru. He's done a number of things in his life, including he spent 10 years as the director of food safety at
Heinz, right?
Heinz Corporation. He's done a number of things, and he's pretty well versed and steeped in food safety management. But he's also very familiar with the products, and he works with it. And together, he and I do a lot of.
You know this guy's last name?
In the activity.
Yeah.
You do?
John.
I got 2 other people that help with that. And
Offer me.
my understanding is that they're looking to hire another one.
Okay. Cool. Wonderful.
Including somebody who speaks Spanish, if you needed that, but I don't think you have that.
Well, we'll see.
Some folks do. Some folks down in Mexico do.
Right.
Hey, before you go, how you doing? How you guys doing? I couldn't help but notice the news on the wildfires.
Yes, we're doing okay. The orchard operations and the warehouse operations are back. Everything's back online. So that part was inconvenient because the power was down and the fiber was down, but everything there is back in order. The cattle operations are the place that took the biggest hit with the loss of rangeland, loss of you never think about the loss of the fencing. They lost a lot of cows, which is terrible, but the fencing actually, like $2 million worth of fencing that's gone. So you're like going, wow, Yeah, exactly. And then where are you going to put your cattle for the next couple of years, the remaining ones? How are you going to feed them? So it gets to be more of a challenge. But and we had a number of employees that lost their homes. So you're working through that. But the support from a lot of folks that we know and a lot of the communities around the Northwest have been great, as well as others that are business partners like you guys that have offered help in any form. So it's all good.
Well, yeah, I couldn't help think about you. I think the last time I was up, I stayed at the place in Paris and went through some of the wildfires then. So.
Yes.
Well, anyway, hopefully you're at the tail end of it and it's under control and it'll be behind you before long.
I hope so. Well, it won't really be done until the snow comes, but hopefully it doesn't flare up anymore around here. Burn what's left.
That's true.
So, no, it's all good.
Alrighty, well, I'll follow up on these questions.
Okay.
I'll get back to Kathy with them. She can get you the answers. And if you have any other questions or anything else, shoot me a note and just copy Kathy and keep her in the loop.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, take care, guys.
All right, you too. Thanks,
Thanks.
Shut up. Get bye.
John. All right, bye.
Off mute. Phone's
He was
disconnected.
on Skype. Is that what he was doing? That's why you need to